Okay, welcome back to the program. This is the last day of our Alumni Academy here at University of Saarland in Saarbrücken. I'm inside the university, but it's outside in a natural environment. I'm meeting a special guest today, Professor Paul Morris from Canada. So welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Yes, for the information for our viewers from South Asia and Sri Lanka. Please introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Paul Morris. I'm Canadian. I teach at a small French university in Western Canada in a province called Manitoba. The university is called the Université de Saint-Boniface. It's a French university. But I have I've been in connection with Germany for a long time as well.
Right. And now you said that you have been here for many years. And
yes.
What is your experience in Germany?
Yes, I worked. My experience with the Universität des Saarlandes goes back to 1993, when I came here as a graduate student on an exchange program, and I was writing my dissertation in comparative literature at the time. And I stayed here for a year and did some teaching as a graduate student and so on. And I finished the year. I went back to Canada, defended my thesis, completed the dissertation. And while I was back in Canada, they contacted me asking if I would be interested in coming back for a position, which I did in 1995. And then I stayed from 1995 until 2008 with a position. I also did my habilitation in that time, which is a degree, a postdoctoral degree that's required in Germany if one wants to become a professor.
Yeah, but now you are from Canada and you have studied French and English and of course in German, but now I don't meet many people from English-speaking world as professors or people who are eligible to be professors in Germany. So you have achieved that.
Yes.
So why you wanted to go back? Why?
Yeah, you know, I'm in a way, I'm glad you asked that question, because people often assume that I wasn't happy here, which is not true at all.
Okay.
I liked it, my time here in Saarbrücken very much. I enjoyed the university. I was well received here and treated very well. Everything about it was very nice. But there were, and it's true, it's a difficult process, and it was surprising for some people that I would give that up. It's a great deal of job security as well. But there were a number of reasons which led me to want to go back to Canada, so that's what we did with my wife and our 2 children who were born here.
Okay. So now also my next question is about country Canada. Now in Sri Lanka and of course all over the world, maybe Canada has a very high kind of positive brand because of the new Prime Minister, your multiculturalism, you know, how you manage immigration. So I like to have some of your words because you are a local, you are a professor. So
yeah. I mean, I think it's true that multiculturalism is perhaps one of the defining aspects of Canadian culture, not just for people outside the country, but for Canadians themselves. It's interesting that in Canada, the idea of multiculturalism, although it's under criticism in many countries, in general, in Canada, I think it's positively received. I think Canadians have had a positive experience with multiculturalism as a way of achieving the integration of the hundreds of thousands of immigrants who come to Canada. It's been policy in Canada since 1971. It has been, there is a Multiculturalism Act since 1988, an act of parliament. So it's anchored in our, not just in the general culture, but as an aspect of the legislative and legal foundation of the country.
And as you said, it's among individuals as a part of their nationhood, right?
Yes, I think most Canadians, that is probably their understanding of the Canadian identity, the national identity, is that Canada is a multicultural country.
Yeah, now this is the extra question. Now we recently had East attack by the IS in first time Sri Lanka. So as a result of that, we had the kind of tension. We are still having tension between Muslims and others, right? So, but now as I know, because I read about multiculturalism, how particularly Muslims are integrated to Canadian society. So, but in our society now we have some tensions. Now, when people say in the West, for example, France or even in Germany, they kind of become hostile now to Muslims or even migrants, particularly countries for Muslim migrants. So, what is the Canadian experience of dealing with, let's say, Muslim immigration and even Muslim as a Islam as a culture?
Yeah, of course, since, we can go back to, I think, 9/11, in that period, and, punctuated with various acts of terrorism around the world that have rightly or wrongly been associated with Muslims and the Muslim faith.
Right.
But I think in general in Canada, the overall perception of Muslims is still relatively positive, that it's not seen as, that it's necessarily a threat to the country.
Right.
Now, I say that even though Canada has also had some difficulty with explicitly anti-Muslim acts. There was a terrible event that happened in Quebec City, I think at Christmas, I can't recall, but in Quebec City, where a number of Muslims were killed at a mosque. 2018, I believe so. It's not that long ago. So it's not that there aren't negative manifestations, but I think in the broad population, that type of that kind of distrust, or I don't think it's not really present. I don't
so maybe
think
it shows the resilience of Canadian society based on long-term, like for example, learn process.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and I think that's one of the values of multiculturalism.
Right.
Multiculturalism is not just about responding to a fact of the diversity of peoples. It's also a kind of a policy about how does one go about it? How does one bring peoples together? How does one assure integration from both directions? The integration of the arrivees, the immigrants, but also how Canadian society will have to modify itself, maybe make slight adjustments to accept these immigrants.
I think it's a good learning even for countries like ours.
Yeah.
So my final question is about your recent experience, particularly about this German Alumni Academy. What is your, learning or take home, and what you can, tell my viewers about?
Yeah. Well, the Alumni Association, this Tagung, or this conference, has been a very nice affair. First of all, for me, and speaking egotistically, it's allowed me to meet all kinds of interesting people like you. I've had the pleasure of sitting beside, for instance, a young woman from Georgia who is a very nice person, and I met her. I wouldn't have met her otherwise. And that's with many people, so we get to exchange experiences, and it's allowed me to, kind of deepen, or let's not so much perhaps deepen, but broaden even my attachment to this university, and try to advance the interests of this university, but in connection with my own.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's really valuable for us to get your long-term knowledge about Germany and also about Canada, and your recent learning about our association or academy. Thank you, Professor Moritz. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and goodbye to Sri Lanka.